Welcome, y'all. So, as always, I want to have a quick disclaimer before I get into these buffs and changes for Kartana that these are balanced for in-game use. Okay, these are not balanced for competitive play. This is not small gun singles. This is not VGC. This would be, I mean, 151 speed Kartana is just absolutely absurd. No Pokemon in the real game should be this fast and this strong unless it's Deoxys attack, and Deoxys attack doesn't have proficiency or beast boost in the real games either. So yeah, there are way stronger Pokemon than this in the hack. 181 base attack, while incredible, is not the strongest. It's far from the strongest thing. His coverage is still middling. It's not bad. It's middling. And again, at the end of the day, you're fighting AI. You're fighting against trainer teams. You're not fighting against the real players. So if anything, Kartana can be kind of difficult to use at times in game. I may be exaggerating, but it's a late game encounter. All the Ultra Beasts are late game. If you want to go ahead and use it, go ahead and use it. I don't think it's broken whatsoever for in-game purposes. The decreased HP, which I did because I base HP more on size now, and it's absolutely tiny. It's literally paper thin and it's 1 foot tall. So 47 HP fits very well. But I thought the stats look nicer this way. Defense dropped a bit as well because I know that it's like steel type, but I still don't see it being that bulky. It can take some physical hits. It can maybe take some first impressions, but there's priority moves of every type in this game, and Kartana will drop to like all of the special ones, and then any super effective physical one or strong physical one like Sucker Punch or First Impression. If it's coming off of a strong Pokemon, which it probably will be, Kartana drops in one hit. You might be seeing Levitate and being like, why the hell does I have Levitate? Also, yeah, if you are new here, proficiency is Beast Boost. It's repurposed so that a bunch of other actual Pokemon that you can use for the whole game can have cool abilities like Beast Boost. As for Kartana, though, I just figured that proficiency fits it really well because it's this swordsman. It's like this expert swordsman. So it fits pretty well, proficiency, and I just think it's kind of soulful for him to keep the fact that he boosts up. You can also boost speed a lot easier now with the 151 base speed. But the reason I gave Levitate is number one, because he's literally levitating and he is neutral to ground, and number two, it actually gives him some much needed defensive utility to get him on the field easier versus the trainer's team. Obviously, most Pokemon in this game do have U-turn, Volt Switch, or Parting Shot to switch around, so it's easy to pivot, it's easy to get in frail Pokemon like Kartana, but this makes it a little bit easier. For certain boss fights, you can tack on Levitate. You are a grass type that's neutral to ground. That's also immune to ground now with Levitate. So, for example, versus Hapu especially, Levitate would be super, super useful. And in general, proficiency isn't that great when you're forced out the next turn. Say, for example, you aren't looking at the trainer sheets or you aren't preparing properly, and you just switch in your Kartana, get a kill, get +1 attack. And then the next thing that comes out either one-shots you with the priority move or lives the hit or is Focus Sash or whatever, like, you're going to be forced out. Right? Proficiency isn't nearly as good as you might think it is. Obviously, if you actually play smartly and you plan out the turns properly and you bait in the specific Pokemon and kill it, and then now there's 4 Pokemon left on their team and there's no priority left, now you can probably get a proficiency sweep going if you really wanted to. Me personally, I wouldn't even really be using it too much unless I really want to. I would say it's more useful to get a boost and then kill the next thing and then get forced out by that third thing, for example. That would be pretty balanced, and more fun that way to use your whole team than to just sweep. And at the end of the day, the Ultra Beasts being overpowered is fine in my eyes. Again, they're only late game encounters. I don't expect people to have a whole team of them. Honestly, some of them would be pretty fun to use together. A lot of them would be really fun to use together. And Kartana is far from the most broken of them all. I did give some cool moves. U-turn, like I said, is widely distributed in this hack. First Impression, also widely distributed in this hack. All types of moves are buffed or changed, so you should check those out in the description on that Google Sheet. Although I'm assuming if you listen this deep into the videos, you probably know that by now. Most people who don't look into that stuff are probably just going to pause the video like the 10-second mark and then leave or something. I don't know. It does have better stab moves now as well. It doesn't only have Smart Strike. Smart Strike has 75 base power and gives +1 accuracy, which is good for household Pokemon and just in general. But on Kartana, he has Laceration and Leaf Blade, which are 70 base power moves with a 50% crit rate, which I made for Ruthless Pokemon. I'm not giving Kartana Ruthless, not just because I think it's a little bit overpowered, because Sacred Sword always crits, but also because, like, Levitate is genuinely more useful. Because it's such a frail Pokemon, especially on the special side, having that defensive utility to switch in on ground moves that the AI can, you can predict when they're going to use ground moves. For example, the AI, let's say they have Earth Power, freaking Water, Hydro Pump, and that's it for their attacking moves, and I have a Steel, Steel type in, alright, whatever. they're probably going to use Earth Power. That's obviously situational, but my point is you can switch in your Kartana on an easily predictable ground type move and get a free switch in. It's also immune to poison because it's a steel type, so that's nice. Steel and ground, poison and ground immunities are very nice. Immunities in general are nice because you do have access to that infinite usability capsule, so it's not like I expect you to choose Levitate over proficiency for every fight. Guillotine is 100% accurate, but it only has 1 PP. It could be useful for like either a free proficiency boost on something that walls you, or for totems and stuff, or like Rainbow Rocket, for example, post game, because they're gonna have those box arts. You can just click Guillotine and delete one of them. Pretty useful utility there. Situational, but it's decent. Yeah, Laceration and Leaf Blade will crit 100% of the time when you're holding a Scope Lens, so those become 105 base power, and they also ignore Intimidate drops and Battle Cry and all this other stuff that is like Parting Shot, etc. All this defensive counterplay is ignored by crits, so that's pretty crazy for Kartana. And then Cycle Cut and Ice/X's are good coverage moves. Sacred Sword, like I said, always crits, so that is overall 97.5 base power now, so that's really good. Slightly stronger, good fighting type coverage. Of course, you have Brick Break as well if you deleted Sacred Sword for some reason, or you want to, I don't know, bypass screens, but Sacred Sword critting also does that, I believe, so kind of useless Brick Break, but it's still good at 85 base power. If you did delete Sacred Sword and you don't have the move learner yet until the leak, then you can go ahead and teach Brick Break, I guess, for fighting coverage, which is really important on Kartana, as I'm sure you guys know. And honestly, in most fights, you don't even need coverage. You can just run Stab and then U-turn and then switch into your Pokemon that can deal with whatever's in front of you. Acrobatics is good coverage as well. You know, you got some really fun stuff. Finishing Blow gives you +3 attack if you knock the opponent out with it. So with proficiency, that's +4. It fits Kartana really well as well. In general, it's pretty straightforward. Grass Knot can potentially be much stronger than Leaf Blade if the opponent is heavy. That's a physical move now. Knockoff, still the same thing. It's slightly weaker. Grassy Terrain can be good utility if you want to use that and then U-turn into your Abuser. Because that typing is still good. Like, physically, he can take some hits because of that good defense stat, because of Synthesis. Especially if you have debuffs on the opponent, you can actually take hits pretty well, because you do have, you know, really good typing defensively. But that Spadef is still garbage. You're still dying to special hits, which is why I give it Levitate. Like I said, gives it much needed defensive utility, gives it actual switch-in opportunities. Not everything's about offense, especially in a hack like this. You're gonna want a lot of defensive stuff and supportive stuff to deal with the threats ahead of you, especially if you're doing a Nuzlocke, which is what this hack is balanced around, by the way, if that's not obvious. Not that, like, for more experienced players, I intend for them to do Nuzlocks. Otherwise, it might be a bit easy if you're like a very experienced hardcore Nuzlocker. But especially with team locks, because then you can like really strategize and be creative. But if you're just a casual player who's not super experienced or not super sweaty when it comes to Nuzlocking, you'll struggle plenty, and it'll be a fun, rewarding experience regardless of what type of format you play, I'm sure. And if you find that's too easy, then go ahead and do a Nuzlocke. But I don't think it'll be too easy for casual players. Yeah, I'm getting off topic, but I think that's really about it. The speed also fits Kartana really well. He's literally like this little paper guy. Like, I see him moving around like extremely fast, you know? Same vibe as to why he has giant attack. Like, this Pokemon already makes no fucking sense, you know? So I don't see why he can't just have crazy ass speed too. These stats make a lot more sense for him, in my opinion. Really fun, really funny. I think I've covered pretty much everything. Honestly, it's really not that crazy. There's so many better offensive Pokemon that I would rather use, that have better coverage, better dual stabs, better abilities, better just defensive utility, because again, it's important to be strong and have defensive utility at the same time. But he's still fun, and he's still Kartana at the end of the day. So yeah, thank you so much for listening, everybody, and I'll be back for more buffs and changes coming up, y'all. Peace.